Hey, good morning. Welcome to day 2 of remote learning. So, I'm super excited with all the work that I've seen so far coming in from day 1, and you guys have been doing a great job. Again, if you have any questions or comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out, leave a comment in the group, or email me separately, whichever you prefer. So today we are going to be getting into the second part of lesson 1, and today we're going to be doing a little bit more digging into George versus George, and you guys can use the videos that are posted on YouTube to do this activity, just to let you guys know that ahead of time. I do sound a little bit more quiet than usual because when I'm recording these videos, it's because Ellen's napping, okay? Right now we are under severe quarantine. Mary Kate is quarantined, she's not feeling well. And so I'm trying to do all this while she is sleeping for the most part. So if you're having trouble hearing me, just please turn your volumes up. I'm doing it the best I can. And again, all of your cooperation has been awesome. But today we're going to be focusing on our craft question. Our craft question is a question that we already should know the answer to, because we did a lot of test prep stuff. We've done a lot of great writing leading up to before we got closed for the coronavirus outbreak. But our question today is, why is evidence important? And it's not just why is evidence important in writing, it's evidence is important in everything. Like when we're talking about in George versus George, you have two sides of an argument, and each side is obviously going to need some form of evidence to support why they feel a certain way. So our craft question also supports our focus question, which is, what were the perspectives of the two sides of the American Revolution? Because one side is going to say one thing, and they're going to have their evidence, and then the other side is going to say their opinion and have their evidence as well. So now, how can we answer a question completely? Think about that for a second. Think about all the work we've done with racks and with extender responses. How do we answer questions the best way possible? Do you know? You should. And we answer questions the best way possible, of course, with evidence. That's with evidence. And you guys should know that everything that you write has to have supporting details, supporting evidence, right? But here are some reasons why evidence is also important. You can't answer the question fully without it. Because if you give me a one-sentence answer with no evidence, you guys know I'm not going to accept that. The second reason is, it shows me you read the text. I never really thought of it that way, because I always see you guys looking at the text, reading the text, but if you're including evidence in your writing and in your responses, I then know for a fact that you read the text. And the last thing is that the more you read and the more you know, the more evidence you have, you guys will clearly see that there were two sides to this American Revolution argument that we've been facing, okay? So now, we are going to be creating a chart today. And that chart, I'm going to post it for you guys, don't worry. You should be able to edit it as a Google document, so you can just type in your information on both sides, okay? But I'm going to start off by modeling it for you, okay? So on one side of the chart, I have for America, and on the other side of the chart, I have against America. Now, we know that the side that was for America, the first side of this argument, was the colonists, okay? And the side that was against America was the British. And I'm focusing on that, the last quote of the introduction today, that there are two sides to every story. And what you're going to be doing when you are reading today is looking for evidence of both sides of the argument, okay? You're going to be looking for evidence that supports the American view, and you're going to be looking for evidence that supports the British view. So when you're listening to that video today, make sure that if you hear something that sounds like, oh, this is why the Americans were mad at the British, write that down. If you hear something that says, oh, this is why the British were annoyed with the colonists, put that right in your chart. Now, you guys may be thinking, that chart looks weird, there's a spot in the middle. You need that spot in the middle because you're going to use it in later lessons. Because as much as there's one side to an argument and the other side, there's always kind of like a middle ground also. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to model for you guys by reading the introduction over again. And I think that introduction gives me some pretty concrete evidence for both sides of the argument, okay? So I'm going to open up to George versus George, and I will be rereading the introduction to you guys now. If you want, you can practice what you have to do right now as I read this. I want you to be listening for at least one piece of evidence for each side of this argument, okay? So, introduction. There were once two enemies who were both named George. George Washington was the man who freed the American colonies from the British, and George III was the British king who lost them. Was King George a royal brute? American patriots said so, but others hailed him as the father of our people. Was George Washington a traitor? The king's supporters thought so, but many celebrated Washington as the father of our country. Who was right? There are two sides to every story. There's that big important line again. There are two sides to every story. So the one piece of evidence I picked up was when they refer to King George as a royal brute, okay? So for me, I'm gonna put that on the colonist side, and I'm gonna say that King George was a royal brute. Now I'm putting that on the colonist side because a brute is kind of like a bully, okay? It's someone who kind of pushes people around and makes them do stuff they don't want to do, and it's just kind of mean to them. So that's how the colonists saw King George. And then for the against America side, they called George Washington a traitor. And instead of writing George Washington, I'm just going to write GW because I do have to save a little bit of this chart for you guys. So I'm going to put GW was a traitor. But I can also put that the British, they thought that King George was the father of the people. So they clearly had an opposite view from the Americans on King George, okay? That's gonna wrap it up for me today. One thing I've noticed so far is that when you guys are answering the questions that I'm posting in classroom, you're not giving me full responses. I know the first one was a little bit difficult, but today you need to make sure that you have evidence, that you're adding that evidence so you can answer the questions completely. Because I am grading you guys. You guys are not gonna get full credit on those responses if I don't have some form of evidence or you at least explain your thought that you have, okay? Also, please be sure to post in the group the one thing, the one noticing or wondering that you have that really stands out. What about George Washington and the colonial Americans are you wondering? Did you notice? What about King George did you notice? Are you still curious about? And what I'll do is I'll try to write back to some of those questions as best as I can. Also, once we get everybody involved, because there are some people who still haven't logged on yet, so if you know any of those people, please reach out to them. Tell them, hey, Mr. Cuddy's given us some good information. Get in Google Classrooms, start getting your work done, okay? But once we have everybody in, I do want to go live on YouTube for you guys. It can be our way of doing questions, whether they're about Google Classroom, whether it's about what I'm doing, whether it's about what you guys are doing. I would love to hear you. I'd love to see you guys if we can set up something else also. But just for now, make sure you're doing all your work the best you guys know how to. Make sure you're using evidence in your responses, and make sure you're uploading everything on time. If there are any technical issues or anything like that, please, 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 please reach out to me, all right? Day 2 is in the books for ELA. I'll be posting the math video from Embark later on and everything else you guys need, all right? See you tomorrow.